Rumors are circulating on social media that might drastically alter Kirk's, Rasheeda's, and even Mendes's lives, leaving fans in disbelief. Young Job accused Rasheeda of hiding a pregnancy, not just any pregnancy, but one that was allegedly with Mendes himself. In a shocking turn of events, Young Jock and Kirk Frost, two of Atlanta's most notorious reality stars, got into a heated disagreement that, after tensions increased and secrets were revealed, totally upended the love and hip-hop scene. The tension between Kirk Frost and Young Jock began while the two men were at a get-together with mutual friends. At first, everything seemed to be going according to plan. Beverages were being served, music was playing, and everyone was having a good time. However, what started out as a private argument turned into an unmanageable public spectacle that split the family, destroyed friendships, and left the entire city discussing the scandal that no one could have predicted. Did Rasheeda really betray Kirk? Was there a party at Mendes? How will Kirk Frost handle this vicious assault from the he used to call a brother? Listen carefully, because what you're about to hear will cause you to reconsider everything you thought was true. As the evening wore on, others saw that Young Jock was staring at Rasheeda in an odd way, as if he had something to say but was keeping it to himself. At first, Kirk thought Jock might have had too much to drink, so he ignored it when he began talking louder to his friends in a way that made the entire room silent. When Jock raised his voice and asked, "Do y'all know what Rasheeda's secret is?" the room fell silent and Kirk turned to face him. He tried to deny it, but the tension in the room instantly grew and everyone became interested. She didn't seem to notice at first, but as her name was called, everyone's eyes were on her. "You're unaware that Rasheed is concealing something significant?" And that Kirk's tolerance was wearing thin. Joke smiled and went on, "All right, I'll just say it. Your wife is pregnant." He tried to remain composed as he walked up to Joke and said, "If you've got something to say, just say it. Don't keep throwing hints around." After a long silence, Joe spoke again, this time in a more combative tone, adding, "You think everything's perfect? Huh, well, it's not. But the real issue is, who's the father?" Because Kirk's face was as white as a sheet. He paused for a while, not sure what he had just heard. Jock leaned back, his eyes widening, his tone suddenly casual but tinged with fury. "What the hell are you talking about?" he asked. "Is not a fabrication of mine?" As they stood there looking at Joke, everyone in the room was stunned, and some of them secretly took out their phones. While you've been focusing on your projects, Rasheeda has been spending a lot of time with Mendes. It looks like she's organizing a little surprise, but you won't know. Rasheeda, who had been talking to friends, turned and rushed over to ask, "What's going on?" When she saw Kirk's expression and Jock's cunning smirk. "Are you truly distributing false information in this way? Do you really believe that you can just enter here and spoil my family?" Joke. With little self-control, Kirk shook his head and laughed before slamming his fist against a nearby table, sending the glass tumbling to the floor with a loud noise. He spoke through tight teeth and initially didn't even acknowledge her, his eyes firmly fixed on the Joke. Her eyes widened as she went between the two men. "Joker, you're too blind to see what's happening right under your nose. You're out of your mind. There's no baby. There's no affair." "Why are you making these lies up?" Rasheeda remarked. Rasheeda shook her head, clearly upset, and said, "Come on, don't act like you don't know what's going on. No falsehoods here, Rasheeda. You think others haven't noticed Mindy seeing your late-night texting and secret meetings?" Joker stepped back, raising his hands in a fake submission. When she said, "I don't have any proof. Assume for the moment that I have every receipt." He took some time to let the tension build, and if you want me to be more specific, he could even show you some texts. Kirk lost control of his emotions and shoved Jock violently, causing him to stumble backward and knock over drinks as he fell into a table. People rushed to move aside, but Kirk wasn't finished yet. His emotions were out of control. At the same time, he felt hurt, confused, and angry. ignoring Rasheeda's attempt to soothe him by saying, "Please listen to me, Kirk." Kirk rushed to confront Jock with his fists clenched. He smiled and said, "You're really going to come into my house and destroy everything just because you're bored and you want to ruin my family's life. I am just the messenger. I am not the one destroying your family. Okay? There is no affair. There is no baby. You're letting Joe get in your head, and that's all this is. You need to settle some significant issues with Rasheeda." Jock raised his hands in mock surrender, saying, "Fine, ask all the questions you want. The truth is already out there, Kirk. You're just too late to see it." Security moved in to separate the two men, leaving the room in chaos as people talked about what they had just witnessed. Rasheeda, who was now crying, tried to step in again, but Kirk was too far gone, and the tension in the room was unbearable. "Stay out of this, Rasheeda. I'm finished. Joke, I need some answers from you, and I won't stop until I get them." Some people tried to comfort Rasheeda, but others kept recording. The evening had begun even though the evening had started out as just another party. The party had quickly turned into a nightmare, and Kirk's mind was racing as he stormed out of the premises, refusing to even look back at Rasheeda, while the tension in the room gradually subsided. He felt as though his entire world was falling apart in front of him. Whether Rasheeda was actually carrying Mendy's child, whether Jock was telling the truth, and most importantly, whether Kirk could ever forgive her if he discovered that. His worst fears were real. Rasheeda, who was still clearly upset, rushed after Kirk, begging him to use common sense. But Kirk was not going to listen to any more excuses, so he got into his car and slammed the door shut when Rasheeda tried to stop him. "Please just talk to me." "Don't let him get in your head," she screamed as he drove away. But it was too late. The damage had already been done, and Kirk couldn't get rid of the memories of the joke that had become ingrained in his mind. What if it were true? Could it be more than Mondays and Rasheeda co-parenting? The drama and commotion kept Kirk in the spotlight, and he liked it, as I mentioned earlier. His voice was full of satisfaction as he spoke, but there was something deeper in his voice that suggested he understood exactly what he was doing. Even though he liked to stir things up, what he was saying was meant to destroy the shaky trust between him and Rasheeda. Not just to hurt Kirk, Jock had a way of taking advantage of situations, and this time was no exception. Rasheeda found herself standing alone in the middle of the crowd. I tried to comfort her, but she didn't feel much better. Her heart ached with a mixture of surprise and anger because of how quickly things had gotten out of control. Why Jock had chosen to accuse her in this way, and why he was involving Mendez in the mess. Her thoughts were interrupted when her phone buzzed. It was Monday's texting to check on her. She replied, "I'm fine, just need some time to figure it out." However, as she was sending the message, she began to wonder if Mayonnaise was actually involved in the prank that was accusing her. Later that night, Rasheeda found out she was moving back and forth in her living room alone. Kirk's phone went straight to voicemail every time she called him, and she couldn't understand why he wouldn't just listen to her. Rasheeda was stuck because she knew Jock was lying, but she couldn't seem to convince Kirk of that. And the more she thought about it, the more she realized she needed to do something about it. The drama only grew more intense as the sun rose over Atlanta the next morning, and when Kirk finally returned her call, she hurried to meet him. Kirk's eyes were full of rage when they sat down to talk. "The reasons behind jokes, statements, Mendez is making this drama to annoy you. But I promise you that there is nothing going on between us." Kirk shook his head, clearly not believing it. "But why, Rasheeda? I've heard rumors that you've been aloof lately and spending more time with Mendez, and this isn't the first time. I'm disappointed and confused. How come you didn't tell me?" His voice was shaking with emotion. Seemed impossible to shake Kirk now that the doubt had been ingrained in his mind. But she could see how deeply it had been sparked between them. "I promise you nothing has happened. Mayonnaise and I are just co-parents, and we are only doing what is necessary for our children." Kirk wasn't convinced though. "So how can I be sure that I can trust you anymore? How can I tell that's not true? All of this is coming from jokes, and you've been keeping secrets. I can't act like everything is fine when it's not." She pulled out her phone and showed him the texts she and Mendez had exchanged. And Kirk narrowed his eyes as he read the exchange in the texts, and after a few moments of silence, he looked up at Rasheeda, confused, not knowing what to believe, and then Jock entered. He had been standing outside listening to their chat for some time, and now he saw the ideal opportunity to attack. "What's wrong?" Joke's voice was full of sarcasm, but the boys were still trying to convince Kirk that there was no child on the way. Rasheeda looked at Jock and said, "I know you've got a right to be mad, but you also need to open your eyes and see what's really going on. I don't care what you think. You know you're just trying to cause trouble because you have nothing else to do." He turned to face Jock, his eyes blazing with anger, and said, "I'm just saying that the truth will come out eventually. You can't hide things like this forever." However, Jock wasn't done. The rumors and falsehoods were far from over, and the future of their relationship was still uncertain. After Jock left, his remarks remained in the air, and after the chaos Jock had caused, it was obvious that the damage had been done. Kirk's confidence had been betrayed, and Rasheeda was left alone. For the next 4 days, Rasheeda hardly slept at all. And every time she checked her phone her mind was filled with images of Kirk's joke and the horrible charges that still haunted her. "You might be hiding something." When friends and family messaged her to ask what had happened, no one seemed to believe her, and no matter how hard she tried to clear her name, it seemed like everything was slipping out of her hands because the whispers had taken on a life of their own. Kirk had hardly spoken to her since the bitter argument that morning, and every time she left a message, it was ignored, so his silence in the interim was deafening. Rasheeda had never seen Kirk so distant and uncaring before. He had always been the one to comfort her and support her through thick and thin. Rasheeda called him up one night in an attempt to confront him, even though young Jock had contributed to the issue. She was desperate to know why he had chosen to bring her name into the fray, and why he had escalated the situation in this way. "Joke, I need to talk to you," she said. "Has advanced sufficiently. You must explain your motivation to me. Why are you upset with me?" Jock picked it up almost immediately after she spoke it in a shaky voice. After a little period of silence during which he seemed to think over what she had said, the Jock sighed and remarked, "You want to hear the truth? All right. You believe that I'm acting irrationally. Right. You believe Kirk is unaware of the fact that everyone is aware of you and Mendez," Rasheeda said fiercely. "I'm not the one making things up. He's just too blinded to see it. It's you who is disseminating false information, and it's ruining everything. I've observed how you two interact and how you gaze at each other," Jock stated. "Rasheeda, you can tell lies to yourself, but not to me." The words "you're out of your mind" hit Rasheeda like a punch to the gut, and she froze. "I've been around long enough to know when something's up, and Kirk is too wrapped up in his own ego to see the truth. He's just waiting for the right moment to explode, and when he does, everything will come crashing down. Joke, Mendez, and I are simply co-parents. There is nothing more between us. Joke has to stop. I refuse to allow you to destroy my life. You must quit telling falsehoods." She took a deep breath to try to calm herself, but the whispers were making things worse, and the idea of losing everything she had fought so hard for was unbearable. "I'm not the one tearing your life apart, Rasheeda. That's all on you." Jokes. Tone softened, but only slightly. Later that day, Rasheeda was at a crossroads. Kirk was still not returning her calls, so she needed to contact him. And since that was the only way she could think of to communicate anything, she finally decided to write him a letter. Feeling more confused than ever, Rasheeda hung up the phone, her questions, doubts, and confusion having only grown as a result of her conversation with Jock. She thought she understood what was happening, but all of a sudden, it seemed like everything was falling apart, and worse, she wasn't sure if she could stop it. "There is nothing between Mendez and me, so what Joke is saying is false. I want you to know that I understand your anger, but please don't let it ruin all of our hard work. as she sat down to write that had been a burden on her heart. Even though the words came naturally, each line felt like a knife to her heart. I'm not sure where to begin, but here we are. And I sincerely hope you know that I have never betrayed you, and I never will. She signed the note with a trembling hand and put it in an envelope, looking at it with a sense of despair. Will Kirk read it? Will he believe her? Will have Jock's words destroyed his mind forever? It's the idea that things might never be the same again weighed heavily on her chest as she walked to her car, beginning to doubt that they would ever be able to get back together. The damage had already been done, and she had no idea how to fix it. Meanwhile, Kirk was at home, looking at his phone and the messages that Rasheeda had been sending, but he couldn't bring himself to read them. Rasheeda had always been his rock, but now he didn't know whom to believe, and the distance between Kirk and Rasheeda grew stronger as the days passed. They both felt suffocated by the unresolved tension between them, and as the rumors continued, it seemed like everything was coming to an end. And the doubts, suspicions, and worries that Jock had sown were now growing inside of him. Rasheeda began to feel increasingly overwhelmed by the chaos around her. From a sense of security, her life had become a never-ending maze of rumors, accusations, and emotional turmoil. Each day without communication felt like a weight on her chest. And she couldn't understand why Kirk wouldn't just talk to her or give her a chance to explain herself. His silence was nearly intolerable. And even in her case, the grief brought on by his coldness was almost as terrible as the charges. Even in her darkest moments, Rasheeda couldn't let go of Kirk. She couldn't just up and leave the life she had built with him over the years, no matter what. But the more time went by, the less hopeful she became. Was it too late? Had the damage already been done? One evening, she was browsing through her phone when she saw a message from an unknown number. Her heart skipped a beat, and she opened it right away. It was a brief text, but it made her shudder. Rasheeda felt as though the pressure was mounting with every second as she sat back and stared at the letter in shock. But she knew it was a joke and that his words had begun to haunt her even when she thought she the situation, so she didn't need to know who sent it. Jock was doing everything he could to destroy her relationship with Kirk. But why? The idea that he had only made things worse. Why was he pulling her down like this? And what was he hoping to achieve? After some consideration, Rasheeda realized that she had to confront the disorder head-on, no matter how painful it would be. She couldn't continue to ignore the reality. She needed answers. And so she set up a face-to-face meeting with Jock in a nearby cafe later that evening. It had to be settled in person. No more texts or phone calls were permitted. Their relationship had always been strained, but now it was worse than ever. She felt a wave of fear sweeping over her as she sat at the table seated across from Jock. Joke. You've been making a lot of difficulty, Rasheeda said in a calm but agitated manner. Why are you treating me this way? Why are you attempting to ruin all of my hard-earned money? She inquired, and Jojo gave a casual shrug. Rasheeda, I'm just being honest. People can tell how you and Mendez look at one another. There is nothing between Mendez and me, Rasheeda yelled. I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking. That's a lie. We've been co-parenting. You know that. You're still in denial, she said. Is more serious than that, Rasheeda? You've been acting like the ideal wife for a long time, but everyone knows the truth. Her heart was thumping in her chest before Jock's words shocked her and made her feel angry. You're a hypocritical jerk who is trying to ruin Kirk, me, and our family. What do you really want out of this? Perhaps I'm just sick of watching you get what you want while other people suffer. Rasheeda's hands trembled at the impact of his words. You think I've had it easy, but you have no idea what I've been through. You have no concept of what it's like to give up everything for the ones you care about. Dot stepped forward in jealousy and his eyes narrowed. This is about the reality, not jealousy, so don't flatter yourself. Rasheeda stood up, her hands clenched at her sides. The truth always surfaces, Rasheeda, even if you've been living in your own little world. Joke also got up, his face hardening, and said, You can't fix this, Rasheeda. It's already too late. The damage has been done, and if you don't fix things, soon there won't be anything left to save. I'm finished with this joke. You're mistaken if you think you can ruin me. Rasheeda left the cafe feeling as though she was leaving the nightmare. She wasn't sure how much more she could take of the accusations, the lies, and the constant pressure. It was all too much. Even though the road ahead was uncertain and the future seemed more bleak than before, Rasheeda wasn't ready to give up just yet. She would fight for her relationship with Kirk no matter how difficult it got. The problem weighed heavily on her chest as she drove home. She needed to find a way to make things right. She couldn't leave her family, but how could she repair the damage and regain Kirk's trust after everything that had happened? Work things out despite the sudden accusations and betrayal. What is Young's true goal? Is he trying to help, or is he just trying to destroy everything that gets in his way? Please share your thoughts in the space provided below. Do you think Rasheeda can mend the relationship with Kirk, or has the damage already been done? Will Joke's dishonest tactics lead to their eventual breakup, or will they weather this storm together? If you want to stay up to date on all the drama, please click the like button and subscribe for more incredible celebrity news. We guarantee that this story will get even stranger, so you won't want to miss the next surprise. The alerts too. Make sure you don't miss the most recent information on all of the most contentious subjects. As always, we value your opinions, so please share them.